Hello, everyone, and welcome to Build to Disrupt the Build, where bold innovators share their journeys and reveal how they're shaping the future of construction tech. In this episode, we are going to chat with Hamid Hajian, founder of Zebel.io. From his roots in a family real estate business in Iran to building a platform that's transforming construction estimating, he shares his inspiring journey with us. All right, let's go back to the start. Where did your journey in construction begin? We want to know what got you interested in industry as a whole at the first place when you started construction.
Well, I grew up with it. I grew up in a family of real estate developers and construction people. My dad is a retired real estate developer, also his uncles, and pretty much everyone else in the family. I used to go to the job site with my dad since high school. And even like during college, it was kind of my part time job, especially during summer, to help him out at the job site with whatever I could to, supervise subcontractors or anything else that I could do at that time.
Mhm. And at that point, did you ever think that one day you will be in tech in construction, or you're mainly focused in construction? And have you ever think about moving to US? What happened that caused you to think moving to US or going to construction tech?
And not really. There was no construction tech, at least back when I was in Iran, where I was born and raised. And
Mhm.
my thought was, I'm going to go to college for civil engineering and get the formal education and come back and keep working with my dad and just
Mhm.
at some point take over his business as he's retiring. That was my thought. But things changed after I graduated. I became really interested to just go out and explore the world, and education seemed like the best ticket for me to use to just go explore the world. And
Mhm.
I didn't even pick a particular country. I
Mhm.
remember I applied to about 35 colleges across the world: the US, Canada, in Europe, even like Singapore, Malaysia, Australia. My thought was to just maximize the chance of getting accepted somewhere so I could get a
Mhm.
chance to go out and explore the world. But luckily, I ended up in the US.
What happened that you ended up in US? Did you got admission from different universities? What happened?
Yeah, I applied to about 15 schools for graduate programs and masters in construction management. I did a whole lot of research on which schools have engineering schools and which ones have graduate programs, and then which ones have construction management graduate programs. I had a whole folder of just a whole research on doing it on dial-up kind of speed internet back then,
Mhm.
and I shortlisted a lot of schools, and I ended up getting uh, admission with full scholarship from only one school, and that was University of Alabama.
Wow.
And that one was just sheer luck because I remember that school had their application system was down at the time I was applying, and I had to
Mhm.
send money order. And for and anyone living in Iran, there
Yeah,
is no
I
way
know.
to get a U.S. money order in Iran to send money, and
Yes.
they advised against sending cash, but there was no other way. And I had some good feedback from through email from one professor over there, and I just put $25. I remember the application fee was $25. Put it in the pocket, and put a
Mhm.
little note that your system was down. There was no other way to send the application. Here's your $25, and and that $25 and that application became the only one that gave me full scholarship, which
Wow.
significantly increased the likelihood of getting the U.S. visa. Because, as you know, it's extremely difficult for Iranian nationals to even get any kind of U.S. visa. And
Yeah.
for students, it's much more likely to get a student visa if you have funding from within the U.S. And
Mhm.
that's how I ended up going to University of Alabama. And after one semester, I transferred to USC in LA because it was too hot over there and there was no Iranian food. And I moved to LA and continued my education over there at USC in the construction management program.
I see. I see. Well, discussing and sharing about the food, Iranian food in Alabama. Uh, it's I know it's challenging for everyone when they're moving from one country to the other. How was the shift in terms of culture shock? Did you face any challenges when you moved here? Anything that surprised you when you got here? So what was the first impact and your first impression?
There was no shortage of surprises and all kinds of challenges. I remember
Uh,
just the first thing, just naturally, is just language. And
yeah.
I remember there was this Pizza Hut close to the apartment that I had rented. And it was like within 1 week that I had just settled down in that apartment. I went to get a pizza, standing in the line, and when I got there to the counter, I had really no idea what these like different kinds of pizzas were. I love pizza, but I wasn't familiar with the types and names here, and I
Right.
wanted to order like some like vegetarian kind of pizza. And I remember I got there and I told the cashier I want bell pepper and this and that and onion and this and that, and she goes, "So you want personal pan?" But obviously I couldn't understand a word of what she was saying. And I was like, no, 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 I don't want personal pan. I want bell peppers and mushrooms and onions. And it took me like good like 10 minutes with a long
To
line
explain.
forming behind me just to explain what kind of food, what kind of pizza I want. And that was the easiest one. But obviously there's a lot of cultural shocks that you go through. But I was
Mm.
only like 23, and you can handle it. You adjust
Sure, sure, yeah.
to the new social norms that you're in.
Well, I guess when you moved to Los Angeles, you know you didn't have the same difficulties of finding foods because a lot of Persian restaurants are here. So when you moved to LA, you mentioned did you go to USC? Well, what did you study at?
I went to USC in the master's program in construction management,
Oh,
and one semester after I started there, they started their PhD program in construction management. They had
mm,
the master's program for decades over there, and
mm-hmm,
they had just hired a new faculty to start the PhD program, and I applied and I became the first PhD student in construction management at USC.
mm-hmm,
And I was so excited. I remember, like, I was
mm-hmm.
really excited about that opportunity. And about a year later, I finished my master's. I got my master's, but I stayed on for about 3 years without finishing my PhD. I ended up getting another graduate degree from USC, and I never finished it. And it wasn't because I quit, because they basically kicked me out. They
Oh,
my I remember my advisor told me it kind of boiled down to them saying, "Hey, this what you are doing is not research; it's development." That's kind of
mm-hmm.
like how they summarized it to me. And
What was your project?
it was about the connection between 3D laser scanning and BIM, building information modeling.
Oh,
And I did some lab tests over there. It was about getting as-built conditions on the job site, comparing it against the design models, specifically for structural elements like rebars and beams and columns like steel beams. And that was their take. And at the same time, I was presented with an opportunity to go work for a company in New York as a BIM specialist, and that company offered me to support my green card application. And
mm,
I had this kind of dilemma of, should I just keep fighting here to get that PhD degree, or just go on with my life, get a green
mm-hmm.
card, get a job. And it was only 1 year after I got married, so it was like a really
Wow.
critical time. And I ended up, I got advice from two professors. One said, just keep fighting. The other one said, just leave here, go on with your life. I ended up going to New York. It was a pretty kind of depressing time of my life for a couple of years, but that opened up new opportunities. And I ended up
Mm,
using that development experience at USC that I had with laser scanning and BIM at that
mm-hmm.
job in New York.
So your job in New York was your first job that you started as a what, beat manager? What was
Yeah,
that
yeah.
position?
It was a BIM specialist at
Mm,
a civil engineering consulting firm in lower Manhattan called NTech Engineering. So
mm-hmm,
NTech Engineering had a very small BIM department made up of like 4 or 5 people, including myself. And
I
my
see.
job was partly to do some marketing to basically look for BIM jobs, BIM work for architecture firms, for general contractors, for owners, anyone who wants BIM models. So we
I
would
see.
create Revit models for them. And after I joined the company, we added a new line of service for 3D laser scanning for creating as-built models for old projects. And there's no shortage of old facilities in like New York area. And
Yeah.
that was exciting because I thought like, oh, there's a lot of renovation projects going on. They all need as-built conditions, and I'm gonna be laser scanning some fancy skyscraper. And interestingly, my first laser scanning project in New York was scanning the wet well of a sewer pumping station in New Jersey in a really cold day in January. And I remember we were just climbed down into that well, and it was terrible. But that's just life. Well, you picture something, but something very different happens. And
Mm.
but my experience from USC of dealing with laser scanning that helped me even launch that whole service over there.
Mm.
And that's what I did for a couple of years until New York was too cold, and I already had my green card, and I wanted to go somewhere warmer.
Oh, then basically you started with the BIM with laser scanning. It's hot subject now in the industry. A lot of firms are adopting BIM and laser scanning in their processes. So how you transfer your career from beam and laser scanning to estimating and pre-construction, because this is like a different phase of construction, I would say, or maybe a little bit, you know, uh, mutually, let's say, they happening at the same time in pre-construction. Some of them they do laser scanning at the pre-construction phase, but completely different from estimating,
Yeah,
despite the
it's
fact that
not
they
a
are coding.
natural transition, right?
Yeah, how you end up from beam and laser scanning, because still is such a hot subject. A lot of people they're looking for
Yeah.
laser scanners or beam modelers or beam managers. But what made you to shift from beam and laser scanning to estimating?
Yeah, I thought I was gonna just be a BIM manager, VDC manager for the rest of my career
Mhm.
until I took a job at a company called Western National Group, a multifamily developer GC in Southern California that
Mhm.
works very closely with the Irvine Company apartment development.
Oh, I see.
And they hired me as a BIM manager to
Mhm.
implement their ambitious BIM program in their Northern California office.
Mhm.
And at the time, they happened to put that position as part of the pre-construction team.
Mhm.
That's where they thought it was most natural, but it wasn't really well planned. I just happened to be there with some pre-con and estimators around me, and the first 2 years of my work at Western National out of 5 years was all about BIM. And but
Yeah.
until I noticed some other opportunities with my now coworkers who are estimators, and I realized, oh, there's so much more that I can do here. Even with less effort, I can create a lot more value with
Mhm.
estimating, because I noticed they were using a lot of spreadsheets, and I was really good with spreadsheets, and they were
Mhm.
doing a lot of repetitive work, but they were not, all of those processes were not automated. That's where the ideas started to spark, and maybe I can do something here. And I started just a side project to try to automate some pieces of work, presented it to our VP of pre-construction, and he supported me to just keep doing that. And that led me to me transitioning from BIM to estimating and pre-construction.
Mhm. I know a lot of firms and GCs still, some of them they're using platforms.
Mhm.
Autodesk has some platform, Procore has some, tools in their platform for estimating. But most of the firms, if they're not using any of those platforms, they use Excel, and it takes a lot of time to create an estimate, especially if you are dealing with subcontractors that they're not on time, or uh, you know you have to ask them a couple of times to correct their numbers or come up with more accurate data that you're looking for to meet the scope of the project. But with your experience at a time when you worked with a one company, how long it took for you personally to come up with a full estimate for let's say $50 million project?
Yeah, our typical turnaround time for even back of a napkin estimate was 2 weeks. That's how much time the airline company, our client, would give us, and if they would expect us to come back to them with a budget with just the back of a napkin estimate.
Mhm.
And if it was like a full like 50% CD level estimate or like a GMP level estimate, that was
Mhm.
like more than a month, like 2 months, like really long drawn process. But when it comes to the conceptual early stage estimates, when the airline company had just a napkin sketch and they would come to us and say, give me a quick number based on this. And here's a quick description and some pieces of information I may or may not have about this. I
Mhm.
realized my coworkers who were sitting in the same bullpen next to me, they would spend 90% of the time looking up data. And here's a quick example of that. I have
Mhm.
my budget with a couple of hundred line items in it: concrete, steel, tiles, flooring, blah, blah, blah. And for each line item, they would have to pick the unit cost for that line item. Where do I get the unit cost? Let's look it up from the past most similar project. Where is that project? It's in that folder. Oh, I see multiple Excel files. The one that says final construction cost, or the one that says revision two, or revision two final, or which one is it? And the
Which
moment,
one is final?
yeah, which one is final? Oh, only
Uh,
Jack knows it. And where is Jack? Oh, he's no longer with the company.
oh
And
my God.
you would just spend a lot of time just digging up some basic information. And finally, you find the right file, and then you open it up. There's an ocean of tabs in that file. And
Oh.
luckily, if you're lucky to know the format and understand how things are organized, you know exactly which tab to go to and which particular cell. You get that piece
Mhm.
of information. And it's already 2 hours. And congrats, you looked up, it was $1.2 million. Okay, what kind of unit cost does that translate to, like per square foot or per apartment unit? Oh, I need to know how many units was it. Where can I find that information? Oh, it must be on the front sheet, or
Mhm.
oh, I remember it was 250 units, something like that. And it was
Mhm.
2 years ago. How can I adjust it for today? All of that process, it would just take lots of time, and that was
Mhm.
one line item, and next one, and next one, and next one, and that's where I realized we do this every single time. Oftentimes, we look up exact same piece of information just
Mhm.
over and over, only like 2 months later, a week later. And that's when I realized, what if we just download all of this information, put it in just one place, organize it, clean it up,
Mhm.
so that way you don't have to spend 2 hours. You can just look it up in a big spreadsheet. And that's what I did. I downloaded everything in one big organized spreadsheet and called it the database. And that was
Mhm.
the beginning of the historical database at that company.
Oh. Well, I know a lot of firms, including big players like Autodesk, Trimble, Bentley, Procore. They are all saying that their platforms are solving the main issue, which is fixing the data silos and disconnectivity between data silos. Having one source of truth, having one place to keep all the data update. When you update one place, it will be updated everywhere. And then you can have access to historic data. Versioning would be in one central place.
Mhm.
That would be the backbone data of your projects, from pre-design to design to construction to even document delivery, and project what is that, the building management, and facility management after that point. So uh, this basically was your way of fixing data silos to having a database which is basically one place. And a lot of times the data Excel files are dead documents. They're
Yeah.
not live. You cannot collaborate. So did you also think about how to fix those data silos, having collaborative way of doing updates? Because most of the time you're not a single person working on
Mhm.
estimating,
Yeah. Yeah.
collaborating with others, updating. So how did you approach that?
Yeah. After I created that one Excel file, I became the gatekeeper of our data, and people would just come to me. And one day I thought, how can I get rid of all of these requests? Why don't I just upload everything to
Who
Google
bother
Sheets?
me?
Yeah. Why don't I just turn this one Excel file into one Google sheet and just give
Uh-huh.
everyone access? And
I
if you have
see.
a question, if you want to know how much we spent on Windows per apartment unit in Project X, just go
I
look it
see.
up. And you don't have to look at my spreadsheet. And it's
Mhm.
now everyone's spreadsheet. And that just started a lot of like sparking a lot of innovation, because the moment multiple users were able to access that central
I see.
database, they
Mhm.
started coming to me and say, can you create some kind of a drop down menu system so that I can just select the project and the item I want to look at, instead of
Mhm.
looking at one big massive spreadsheet and scrolling up and down and left and right. And then the next step was, oh, can you make it calculate the unit cost per whatever unit of measure that I want? And
Mhm.
can you make it adjust that cost for time? Can you make it adjust? Just one thing led to another. And then the most important one was, this is great, I can look up the cost of Windows, but can you make this do the entire budget for me so I can look at the
I
entire
see.
thing? And next thing I know, this is a full estimate now. This is not just a lookup tool now. And
I see.
without me really noticing it, it just became an estimating tool. And then we started comparing it against our kind of traditional process, and people gained more and more confidence in it, to the point
Mhm.
that people really embraced it. And we gave it a name, a quick estimating tool. And because we have to
Mhm.
give everything an acronym, we called it QET. And
Oh.
it's funny, this is 2016, 2017, we are talking.
Oh wow.
And still
Almost
to
10
this
years.
date, yeah, it was like 10 years ago, more than
Yeah.
and if you go to Irvine Company apartment development, they still use the word QET.
Mhm.
They're referring to these quick back of a napkin estimates, because of the word Q. And then I started with QET 1.0 and then 2.0 and 2.5. And I started versioning it. And next thing I know, I'm basically a software developer in the company. And even they changed my title from BIM manager to senior analytics manager. Still part of pre-construction, but I
Uh-huh.
was working way more closely with our
Well,
pre-con
it's
folks.
data. Data
Yeah.
is gold.
Yes. Yeah.
So you manage the data, you manage the whole process. And how after that shift, do you remember how much time you guys saved on estimating an average project?
It went from 2 weeks to 1 day. And literally how long it would
Wow.
actually take us to do it, it was literally an hour, less than an hour.
Hmm.
And we started using it without really telling the clients this is the secret weapon that we have developed internally. And
Hmm.
until we were really confident that this is working, we're comfortable presenting it. And I remember one day we went to the airline company, presented it to their executives, and they really liked that, appreciated that. And
Hmm.
but it turned out to be a double-edged sword, because from that point on, when they would send us a request for estimate, instead of 2 weeks, they would give us just 1 day
One
to
day.
get back to them. Because you just showed me it doesn't really take you
Yeah,
much time. It doesn't. You don't need 2 weeks. You can just do it 1 day. Just give it to me next day.
it's
and
right.
uh, and then we started using it more and more and more. Over the course of 2 3 years, we used it for over 300 estimates. And uh, and then I was just adding more bells and whistles and widgets to it until
Hmm.
we hit some kind of a technical ceiling that uh, my coworkers were asking for things, for new features that wasn't really efficient to build in a spreadsheet. A spreadsheet is
Hmm.
not built to make a software out of it.
Yeah.
It's a tool. It's a handy, very powerful tool, but there is a limit
Hmm.
to which you
Hmm.
can do
Hmm.
things. And that was the point when I started thinking about, okay, this is the point. I have a shot at turning this into a software, an actual software, and go out and make it available. And that was the beginning of the Zebel journey.
Oh, so I have a question for myself, and I know a lot of people uh, they might have the same question. In in our lifetime, a lot of time we come up with ideas. We have big ideas, especially in construction. I can tell. I spoke with a lot of people that they're in production, but they have really great ideas. The problem is we never execute those ideas. We have a fear. We know the challenge of having a new business. We know the challenge of paying bills and going through the startup life type of life. And the risk. There's a huge risk involved, and and you mentioned that this is the beginning of Zebel journey for you. First of all, if you can walk us through the journey for you when you decided, what came to your mind,
Mhm.
what fear first came in, and then how financially you were able to start this business from nothing,
Mhm.
and from no support. As far as I know, you didn't
Mhm.
get any support from the beginning. So let us know how you did it.
Sure. Yeah. First of all, it was scary. I had all kinds of fears because I had really no kind of fallback option.
Hmm.
And I remember I attended a presentation by Mark Lowry, who founded diapers.com and sold it to Amazon, and later founded jet.com and sold it to Walmart. Now he is a multi entrepreneur, and I asked him similar kind of question, like
Hmm.
how do you transition? So do you
Hmm.
try to kind of make it like smooth, or just jump in? And his recommendation was to try to make it as smooth as possible, but it has to be almost scary in order for it to work, in order for you to have that drive. If it's not scary, you're not
You're
going
not
to be,
ready.
yeah, you're not ready. You're comfortable, okay, nothing
Yeah.
happens if this doesn't work. And for me, when I quit my job, and first I had to build the product, because
Yes,
you cannot sell the spreadsheet to people,
that's right.
and especially if you want to ask for serious money and while keeping a straight face, it has to look good. It has to be enterprise grade. It has to be legit.
Yeah.
And the other challenge I had was I'm not a programmer. I'm a civil engineer by training. And
Yeah.
I did some research. I realized there's a lot of no code app development platforms out there, and I
Mm.
tried a few of them, even wasted some money on some of them, but one of them worked. It was a platform called Bubble. It was a startup company out of New York City at the time,
I
and
see.
and that one worked. I actually hired a professional bubbler to train me on Bubble for about 6 months, and I paid her, I think, like 7 grand or something,
I
and
see.
until I had my MVP. And with that MVP, I signed up my first two clients, and that helped me convince my old friend, who is a programmer, to join
Mhm.
me and build the whole platform based on like code, like legit software.
I
And
see.
but I didn't have money, and at that time, it was around like February, March 2020, which
Mhm.
oddly coincides with COVID, and
I remember
no
that.
VC would pick up the phone. Like everyone was just scrambling basically.
Wiped
And
out.
yeah, it was like, oh, so yeah, it was like, okay, perfect timing to start a company. And I have the idea. I worked on it for years.
Oh
Even
man.
I managed to build the MVP of it. Even I managed to convince my old friend to join me. But now I need money, because I was paying bills with some consulting agreement I had with my former employer at the time, but it
Mhm.
was barely just paying my own bills. I didn't have enough money for my then new co-founder, and
Mhm.
talked to my wife. We had a difficult conversation, and we ended up deciding to just cash out our 401k. And it wasn't a
Oh
whole
man.
lot of money.
Wow.
We had $43,000 in it, and I
Mhm.
asked my co-founder, "Hey, how much money do you need to just get by? That means you have to eat into your own savings just to get by. No
That's
organic
the
food,
scary part.
no fancy life, like
That's the
nothing."
scariest part, that a lot of people they're not want to basically go through that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was scary, because it was our savings, and
Yeah.
and and he needed 50 grand, and I only had 43 grand in the 401k. So we had to take out another 7 grand from our own savings. So that became the 50 grand, and that was like the seed funding of the company. And I went to my friend, okay, I got you for the next year. Just keep coding, keep building as fast as you can.
You try.
And sure thing, 8 months later, we had the professional version of the app up, and we
Mhm.
presented it to Airline Company, and they liked it, and they became our
Mhm.
first major customer, first major like
Oh.
paying customer, and that was game changer. That was game changer because
Mhm.
uh, we had some good revenue in, plus we have great credibility, because our first major client is the largest real estate developer in the state of California.
Big
And
order.
then we started going around the state, and say, hey, we are working with Airline Company. Would you like to work with us too? And it took me about 4 months to get the next one. And then next one, but you have to go through a lot of phone calls, a lot of hustling, basically, to get through. But it was an interesting stage of the company.
Mhm. So I know I would say maybe 80-90% of startups they start with having a couple of customers, but it's not easy to land a big owner developer like Amazon or Google. So can you tell us how you moved up from, let's say, one major customer like airline company to sign with Google and Amazon? I know Amazon is pretty hard to work with. They're not easy to sign any contract with anyone. You have to go through a lot of documentation.
Yeah.
They bet you a lot. It's not easy to sign with them. So what was the journey? I guess it was another scary journey that you went through.
Yeah, with Google, it only took 4 years, so it was a long process. About a couple of months after we signed with Airline Company,
I see.
we met someone from the real estate team at Google at a conference, at a
Hmm.
pre-construction conference. They looked at our product, they really liked it, and they said, we have been developing something internally for our office development project. Your
Hmm.
product looks great, but it's only for multifamily projects.
Hmm.
But let's talk and see what we can do. And even in the after the following conversations we had with them, they even threw around the idea of acquiring us, and we
Oh.
were like, oh, we just started, and it would it wouldn't make sense to do that, and they
Hmm.
needed to customize it for their own projects. At the time,
Hmm.
our product was so uniquely curated for a niche product for multifamily developers and GCs, and they wanted to use it
Wow.
for office projects. I remember they asked, "Do you support like different currencies? What kind of currencies do you support?" And we are like, "U.S. dollars."
You
And they're
started.
like, "Oh, what about our projects across the world?"
I
And
guess, yeah.
yeah, but at the time we were like, "Oh, we just hit the jackpot within 2 months since we launched our main product." But
I see.
we didn't know that it would really take us 4 years after that meeting to really land Google as a paying customer. Because over the next 4 years, we rebuilt the product over multiple times. We made it a
Mhm.
lot more customizable. And we went from just a conceptual estimating only platform to a full estimating platform, from conceptual all the way through GMP level estimating and bid management. And it
Mhm.
took a lot of these, like product development and getting the credibility of working with not just airline company, but many other well-known construction companies and development firms across the country, to get the
Mhm.
confidence of companies like Amazon and Google, just to get the okay from the end user. But little I know that that was just the beginning of the long process, because once you get the green light from the end user at these kind of companies, you have to go through a whole lot of jumping through hoops of like IT and data security requirements. It took us about 10 months to do that with Amazon, but it paved the way to sign with Google, because we had to up our game. And yeah, a lot of challenges, like, because they were
Mhm.
asking for certain things that would cost us to do that, and the
Mhm.
cost of doing those things were often higher than even the value of the contract. And how do you balance that? You don't want to lose that opportunity, but you got to find a way to meet that requirement without having to incur that much cost. But
Mhm.
yeah, really really interesting journey. But now that you're working with those big name companies, it's a lot easier to work with other companies, because the moment someone now asks, hey, how do you take care of our data security, and before even I explain it, I just say we meet Amazon and Google's requirements, and that just
Mhm.
gives people great peace of mind and confidence.
Confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But back then we were a small startup company that no one had heard about, but now it's a very different game.
I see. And in terms of your product, I know we don't want to talk about detail of your product, but in order to understand better, uh, we have a lot of firms and a lot of big players that they have estimating software or platforms. And now that you signed with Google and with Amazon, so can you tell us what are the main differentiators that they picked you guys against them, and why a developer or a GC should, even though they have already Autodesk platform or Procore or others, they should choose you guys over them.
Sure. Let me categorize different estimating solutions that are out there in the market.
Got it.
About 30 years ago, the first estimating tools were developed. They were all like desktop-based tools, and they're still
Mhm.
in the market. And they
Okay.
often have like good market share of this entire software, estimating software.
Hmm.
And then in the early 2000s, some like cloud-based companies came about, and
Hmm.
companies like Procore and Autodesk, they happened to acquire two of those companies, and they called them Autodesk Estimating and Procore Estimating. And the way we differentiate from them is, first of all, we were born in modern age kind of tech stack. We
Hmm.
are built on much more modern tech stack. Plus, we started with the most upstream application of cost estimating, pre-construction. Pre-construction involves historical data management, conceptual estimating, detail estimating, bid management, value engineering. There is a lot happening. And the most
Hmm.
upstream is historical database and conceptual estimating. We started with those two because we realized no one is really capturing that part of the market, and everyone is just using Excel. We found
Hmm.
that as like kind of the wedge to get into the market. And then we kept building more downstream applications. Procore and Autodesk, they bought companies that built products for later stage estimating. And now they're trying to build, kind of move upstream. And it's hard. They're positioned themselves in an uphill battle. But
I
for
see.
us, it's a downhill battle. It's much easier for us. And we are built on a tech stack that's way more modern. And when we build something, we don't have to check if it's going to mess with our 20,000 customers. And if it does, it's going to just delay the project. We are small, we
Hmm.
are a speedboat, and
Hmm.
we can move fast. That's really our superpower.
I see. I see. And in terms of agility, you mentioned that you're agile.
Mhm.
Uh, Now that we see a lot of AI, effect impacting the industry, do you see that impact on your basically platform? Did you already start thinking about having AI functionality? I know a lot of firms are already start adopting. So, what do you
Yeah,
see?
yeah, absolutely. We have already started using AI. We have been using AI internally
Hmm.
for product development. Just a week ago, our head of engineering put out a graph showing our engineering throughput over time, and you
Hmm.
can just clearly see the pull request for like the publishing code has just
Hmm.
went up way higher without adding more people to our engineering department,
Hmm.
because they are using all kinds of AI tools to develop software a lot faster. And that's where you will have a huge advantage. If your tech stack is modern, you will be able to leverage all of these AI tools to develop product. If you're sitting on old legacy tech stack, you're not able to use a lot of those new AI tools because they just
Hmm.
don't talk to old stuff.
Okay.
And in terms of our customer facing our own product, we did unveil our first AI product just a couple of months ago at the annual pre-construction conference. People really loved it.
Hmm.
It's our pre-construction assistant. We called it Tito. We named it after one of our own employees, one of our team
Tido.
members. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and people really love that. Basically, think of it as your pre-construction assistant
I
that
see.
fetches data for you, even creates estimate for you. And we started with like basic stuff. Internally, we are jokingly saying that this is just baby Tito. It's just crawling right now. And when it starts walking and running, it will do a lot more things.
I see. And now with that, let's say AI, baby Tito AI. how fast you can create an estimate?
It minutes. It's
Minutes.
minutes, and that's really where our original slogan comes from: napkins to numbers in minutes.
I see.
That's the idea. Whenever you conceive of a project in your head, you should be
Hmm.
able to come up with a defendable cost estimate for it
Hmm.
within
Hmm.
minutes by just describing it to the computer and say,
Hmm.
how much would a project of this kind of characteristics,
Hmm.
this many acres of site, this many square footage, or this big of a garage, or whatever the thing is, and it would automatically look up similar projects in your database and apply those pricing to your new project's metrics, making all kinds of adjustments needed, and
Hmm.
present you with the cost estimate that you can back it up. It's not just a not a black box.
I see.
Something that you can trace it back so that you can defend every single dollar and cent.
Mhm. And now I know you mentioned about historic data that you are using on your estimate. Do you guys also have calculated the impact of inflation? Now we are always discussing about inflation now more than like ever
Hmm.
because of the shift that we have in US.
Hmm.
So how do you basically calculate those impact on estimates, especially for the projects that they're going
Hmm.
to next 5 years?
Yeah, yeah. It's an integral part of the platform. That was a key component that we built early on to
Mhm.
basically normalize the historical data for
Mhm.
multiple factors. The most important one is time, because if you're using historical data, by definition, these are old data,
Mhm.
and you have to normalize it for time and also for location, as well as any like finish level or any other characteristics. And
Mhm.
we have built tools to do that. The other interesting thing that we are uniquely offering in the market is what we call market data, which is
Mhm.
a collection of all of the data from our clients that
Mhm.
we aggregate and anonymize and let our other clients get insights into the market.
I
Imagine if
see.
you are a developer or if you're a general contractor and you come up with an estimate. It's $400 per square foot for whatever project it is, and you just want to pass a sniff test, and you want to just ask around. What would you do? You pick up the phone, ask your friend who works at another company that you used to work together, and say, "Hey, how much are your projects running for these days?"
Mhm.
And that person may or may not share something with you, and it's usually just based on mutual trust, and say, "Okay, tell me yours, I'll tell you mine," and you may get just one or two data points,
It's
and
benchmarking.
yeah, just benchmarking. It
Yeah.
happens in cocktail parties and over the
Yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
We are replacing that with looking at sophisticated graphs and charts of real data that you can filter based on whatever metric you want. You can
Wow.
say, show me these kinds of projects in this part of the country that are this big, that were built 2 years ago, and show it to me on a cost per gross square foot, per net square foot, per apartment unit, per acre, and slice and dice it different ways without
Mhm.
having to talk to a soul, and get much more reliable insights from the market.
Data backed.
That's data back. Um, if you think about it, that's really our ultimate goal. We are really a data gathering company in disguise,
Mhm.
and we happen to have figured to build an estimating platform that gives our clients enough incentive to give us their data. And of
Mhm.
course, we don't share it, we don't just publicly publish it anywhere, but we have figured out enough incentive to offer so that they would give us, because this is not something that any company would give up to anybody for any reason.
Mhm.
But we have been very carefully crafting a special way to anonymizing the data and publishing it so that it's
Mhm.
it's a win-win situation, and it's a
Right.
very very fine line that we are walking on, and ultimately we are going to be that kind of company that basically replaces something like RS means, uh,
Mhm.
a kind of a table that you just look at and trust that these are correct. When it says the cost of rebar per ton in this
Mhm.
part of the country is this much, um, you just trust it, but you don't really know which project
Which
they use
area?
that number.
Labor
But
costs, everything. Yeah.
yes, so this is going to be similar to like the equivalent of salary.com or glassdoor.com, where it just aggregates people's
That's
salary.
right. Data aggregate. Yeah.
It's just data aggregating for construction.
Yeah.
That's
I see.
that's what in the long term we are going to be doing.
All right. Speaking about long term, what do you see Zebel and where do you see Zebel in, let's say, 3 to 5 years, and also the industry? Where do you feel that you're going to position your company in 5 years?
Yeah. So in the past 5 6 years, we have managed to build a solid product with a solid customer base with some
Mhm.
big name clients. And in the next 5 6 years, we are well on our way to dominate a gap in the industry between Autodesk and Procore.
Mhm. Mhm.
Basically, Autodesk dominates the design space, the design tech space, and
I
Procore
see.
dominates the construction management tech space. They both
Mhm.
have some pre-con capabilities, but it's not really their forte. Uh,
Mhm.
First of all, they were both acquisitions and kind of like an afterthought, and it's not really their focus. But we are
Okay.
dominating that space,
Mhm.
that third company that bridges that gap. And
Mhm.
in terms of the general industry, definitely I see just more data-driven workflows in the future
Mhm.
coming up, and everyone is in an AI race to do something with AI.
Mhm.
Even for marketing purposes or for true value creation for companies. It's more automation, basically, further digitization of the industry. And the
Mhm.
nice thing about our industry is you don't have to come up with some NASA level breakthrough to create value when most of the industry is still operating out of Excel spreadsheets. And
Mhm.
you don't have to come up with some kind of super complicated AI platform to create value. And that's how we see the market. You got to meet the client where they are at. If they're using
Mhm.
Excel spreadsheet, help them up their game from where they are
Mhm.
at. And we are. That's why
Mhm.
we are proud to offer even the professional services along with our software product to help them and hold their hand to go from where they are at to just one step further and grow together.
All right. All right. Well, before we wrap up, first of all, I have to thank you, Hamid, for sharing your story from early days in Iran working for your father to becoming a CEO and founder of a promising platform that's revolutionizing the estimating in construction industry, and also inspiring a lot of folks like me that they might have an idea, but maybe they don't have the courage of pursuing their ideas to becoming another innovator in construction industry. So thank you for that. First of all. And secondly, anything else that you would like to share before we wrap up this call?
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I had fun here, and it's always great to share your stories and see other people also following some kind of entrepreneurial work. That's something that I'm really excited about. I always wanted to do something for myself, and this was my opportunity, and I'm following that, and always happy to share my story.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Hamid. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.